Audrey learned something crucial very early. No sooner does a star achieve personal success than she needs something else entirely, corporate protection. By now, she had her pick, or at least her approval, of the best directors, writers, cinematographers, hair, and makeup artists. Her talent was being looked after. Her money was being handled. What still needed guarding was something more fragile: her image, her interior life, and her sense of safety. That responsibility fell to Henry Rogers, urbane, Europeanized, and quietly powerful. For most of the next decade, almost everything Audrey said publicly passed under his sympathetic scrutiny: interviews, appearances, announcements, even silences. Rogers remembered that Audrey had an extraordinary gift for immediacy. She closed the business gap instantly with warmth. The first time they met, she didn't offer a handshake, she embraced him. "I'm so happy you've come to stay with us," she said. "Not to work for me, but to stay." This was a reoccurring theme. Audrey was never quite Hollywood. Roger's wife, Roz, noticed something else: how closely Mel Ferreira watched over Audrey. Her food, her routine, her energy, managing things came naturally to him, and for a while, Audrey let him. "I don't think acting meant all that much to Audrey," Roz observed later, "not as much as being a wife or becoming a mother." At this point, projects were circling constantly. Most never came to fruition. One that almost did is revealing because Audrey declined it without ever quite saying no. Tennessee Williams offered her the lead in Summer and Smoke, a demanding, profound role, a dream part for an actress. Audrey stalled. She insisted that Givenchy must do the costumes, an impossible demand for a dowdy, repressed spinster in small-town America. Negotiations collapsed. But it wasn't vanity, it was instinct. Summer and Smoke contains a moment that edges towards the violation of innocence. Audrey recoiled. She was not ready, emotionally or imaginatively, to let that happen to her on screen. Fairy tales contain cruelty, danger, and loss, but not rape. And Audrey's screen virginity was not just an image, it was a line she was not yet willing to cross. Instead, she asked for something light, modern, a release after the heavy historical weight of War and Peace. What arrived was Funny Face. Uh, um, Originally conceived as a contemporary musical, it transformed when its creators rediscovered the songs of George Gershwin and Ira Gershwin. The lyrics lifted the burden of explanation. Music created a space where anything could happen. Casting stalled until Audrey emerged as the only possible answer, and she said yes within 3 days. The real obstacle was logistics: studio politics, contracts, geography. Audrey's condition was simple. The film had to be shot in Paris, so she could be with Mel while he worked for Jean Renoir. Remarkably, the studios agreed. Thus, an MGM musical became a Paramount film, a rare bending of power in Audrey's favor. And then there was the matter of her co-star, Fred Astaire. Audrey called it the dream of her life. What she didn't admit was how frightened she was. Astaire was the greatest dancer of the century, but he was terrified too. 57 years old, dancing opposite a woman 30 years his junior, their anxieties cancelled each other out. What emerged was not sexual, but romantic in the purest sense. Tutelage, wit, magnetism, trust, a partnership where elegance did the emotional labor. Audrey worked harder than almost anyone on that film. 5 weeks to rehearse 14 musical numbers, singing, dancing, recording, repeating, always nervous, always precise. She told the director, Stanley Donen, something she had never told anyone else. She could summon an emotion only once. Repeated takes broke it. So Donen rearranged his entire shooting method around her vulnerability. She trusted him because he earned it. The trust was tested famously over a pair of white socks. Audrey believed they would ruin the line of her costume. Donen insisted. He ordered her to wear them. She nearly cried, but she complied perfectly. After seeing the rough cut, she sent him a note. "You were right about the socks. Nothing more." The film. Have you seen Funny Face?
Believe it or not, I don't think I have. Yeah.
It's a film about, so Fred Astaire is playing a photographer, loosely based on Richard Avedon, and he discovers a girl who is working in a bookstore, played by Audrey Hepburn, and he accidentally takes a photo of her because, like, him and a bunch of models, like, just turn up in this like Greenwich Village bookstore, and Audrey's character, very serious character, is like, what are you doing? Like, get out of my bookstore. And he accidentally takes a photo of her and is like, oh my God, she's so beautiful, she must be a
Mm.
model. And then he takes her to Paris and turns her into a model, and they end up falling in love with one another. But there's a very famous photo of her face from it that was actually taken by Richard Avedon for the film.
I understand. They used to love making movies about photographers.
Yes.
They
Yeah,
loved
I mean, well,
Rear Window.
Roman Holiday and yeah, Rear
Yeah,
Window, Funny Face.
sure. Yeah. They're kind of a glamorous, but it's also directors. He Just Like Me for real. It's kind of a very on the nose meta thing going on
Yeah,
there.
the guy with the pen represents the writer, the guy with the camera represents the
Sure.
director.
Sure. And the Chad with the perfect chin represents the podcaster. The chocolatey tones. No, that's good. That stuff works. I mean, Rear Window is
Yeah.
like an all-time banger. And then he ends up using his flash to blind the guy as he's coming at him. I love that. Such a cool, wild movie.
But the thing with the white socks was, so her character agrees to go to Paris because she wants to meet like the Bohemians. She wants to hang out with some existentialists. And so she's in the like black turtleneck
There's
and
a
the black trousers.
She seems to be cast as sort of like it's time for Audrey to slum it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. That's why
Yeah.
Tiffany's is so
But
interesting because it's like, yeah,
there's a lot of films where she's slumming it and then they put her in some designer dresses.
nothing wrong with that.
Because Sabrina is about her being like, she's a groundskeeper's daughter, and then she gets sent to a Parisian finishing school, and then
Hmm.
she comes back in her having learned how to cook and like wear Givenchy dresses, and the two brothers who played by William Holden and Humphrey Bogart like both fall in love with her.
Ah, these seem to be almost
Yeah.
like are these like it's more like women's fantasies than
Yeah.
men's fantasies
Yeah.
in a funny
They're
way.
all fairy tales. She
Yeah,
did fairy tales.
yeah, you're right. It's very interesting to think about. Very important to know when you're slumming it. Again, for the Americans out there, we don't like that phrase. It makes us feel very uncomfortable. You got to know when somebody's slumming it with you, and it's very important to know when you are slumming it. And if you're not doing it consciously and intentionally, may I suggest you get the fuck out of there. Life advice on Art of Darkness.
Excuse me.
God bless you.
By the first week of July 1956, Funny Face was finished, but Audrey didn't get to rest. Almost immediately, she was back at work on Love in the Afternoon, directed by Billy Wilder. She managed only a long weekend at Bergenstock, then a brief stop in London to see friends before returning to Paris and the Hotel Raphael. Around this time, rumors began to circulate that Audrey was about to renounce her British citizenship to avoid the country's punishing tax rates. She laughed it off. "I'm quite happy with my British passport," she said, which was true, but not the whole truth. Quietly and very practically, she arranged for Switzerland to become her legal home. The influence here was Noel Coward.
God, I've seen what you've done for other people, and I want it. I want what you have. I want Swiss citizenship, please. God, I speak a little, ein bisschen German. I want this for my children and my family, please, God. Precious metals are going parabolic. I need Swiss citizenship. You think I'm kidding? In any event, no, that doesn't surprise me at all. I wonder what, and yeah, I assume the Swiss had a more favorable tax system than the Brits. The Brits have a brutal tax.
The Brits
tax.
was I think at that time it was around like 90% or something.
Crazy, just Soviet style socialism with tea. I mean, really crazy.
Well, they were
90%.
trying to trying to dig themselves out of World War II at that point. So
I feel like they still are. I mean,
yeah.
yeah. Oh, jeez. Well, your episode next summer is going to be on Michelangelo, so not World War II. Good choice. That'll be fun. Abbie's coming back next summer, so we're going to have our Summer of Love on Art of Darkness, and then of course in 2027 we're going to do the 27 Club episode. So I'll be knocking on your door again, Abbie. We'll have to find somebody for you to cover. But so okay. So she become a Swiss citizen?
Um, I mean, I assume she does. She ends up living in Switzerland for the most part of her life. So, yeah, Noel Coward, uh, was the influence behind this. He'd recently left England rather than surrender almost everything he earned and said, "You'd be a silly little ninny not to." Audrey agreed, though she chose the Alps over the Caribbean. Oh, he left to the Caribbean, not to Switzerland. She went for the Alps. Um, it meant she could spend no more than 3 months a year in Britain, but that was hardly a sacrifice. The savings were immense, and Switzerland began to feel like safety.
They actually have a
I'm
system of democracy that functions in Switzerland. They have a cantonal federalist system. We have up-down referenda. They don't suddenly drop sports gambling into every home without a
yeah.
vote. There's a real functional democracy, but of course, extremely expensive and very protectionist in terms of immigration. You can't just cross the border into Switzerland and start collecting benefits. I mean, it's a real proper country with history and languages. It's very diverse in its way. And it's so funny you talk to the Swiss and they just think it's so boring, it's so dull. It's like I yeah, I never should have gone. It ruined me. Ruined me. I just need $8 million, Abbie, and a Swiss passport. I'll fly coach. I'll fly coach. Anyway, good for her. She's out there
Good for
crushing it.
her.
She's like getting the studios to bend to her will. She's some sort of like
Yeah.
witch, some kind of magician. She's got something nobody else has. Fair to say? Fair to say.
hmm
Yeah.
Although it seems that she wouldn't have been in this position if Mel hadn't sort of come along and gone, "Oh, no, we got something here. We're gonna need to play a little hardball." Mel was filming in the south of France while Audrey worked in Paris. They spoke daily, met on weekends when they could, and clung to each other across distance. On the eve of shooting Love in the Afternoon, Audrey received a telegram from her co-star Maurice Chevalier. "How proud I would be and full of love I would be if I really had a daughter like you." He played her father in the film, though Audrey later joked it might have made more sense if the roles had been reversed. The real romantic lead was Gary Cooper, over 30 years her senior. Billy Wilder was acutely aware of the danger here, the age gap, the cultural moment, the shadow of Lolita, and rewrote the film carefully, shaping it into a story where innocence disarms experience rather than being consumed by it. Audrey's genius in the role is that she seems both childlike and in control. She flirts but defensively. She appears naive but is quietly strategic. One critic described it as Red Riding Hood eating the wolf. The seducer becomes decent. The world is gentler by her presence. The shoot itself was grueling. Even the famous picnic scene, complete with violins and champagne, was plagued by fog, mosquitoes, and planes roaring overhead. Audrey gnawed through garlic-heavy chicken legs while Cooper uncorked bottle after bottle for retakes. Never was a seducer's work so hard, he joked. Away from the set, Audrey was struggling. Mel's absence weighed on her more than she admitted. She adored the tiny Yorkshire Terrier he'd bought her, which was named Famous, carrying him on a bright red ribbon like a talisman. Friends noticed how fiercely she mothered the dog. Audrey herself was visiting doctors still, hoping for a child. The strain showed. She lost weight rapidly, drank more than usual, moved hotels over something as trivial as a badly mixed martini. She became more guarded with the press, polite, precise, distant. Interviews were tightly controlled. The girl who once called journalists sir now felt untouchable, almost royal. And then the world intruded. In the autumn of 1956, Paris erupted in protest over the Soviet invasion of Hungary. Streets were dangerous. A crew member was killed. Audrey traveled with an armed guard. Then came the Suez Crisis. Fear of war spreading back into Europe. Old memories resurfaced. Wilder rushed production and studios prepared evacuation plans. When it was over, Audrey and Mel agreed to attend the London premiere of War and Peace only if the interval could be used to collect for the Hungarian Red Cross. The film has an interval, Audrey said. Let's put it to some good use. Afterwards, she made a decision. She would stop for a year. She turned down films and she followed Mel to Mexico. She rested for the first time in years. From a quiet hotel garden above sea level with no telephone and cool nights, she wrote to Roger Edens of her relief. Critics had been kind. The public still loved her. The fear had passed. What I really like, she wrote, is no telephone, a perfect place for a real rest. And at the bottom, almost as an afterthought, P.S. Famous loves it here.
I love the dog named Famous.
Yeah.
What breed is this? What was it?
It was some sort of terrier, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Little yapper
Oh,
dog.
a Western Terrier or something. It wasn't. It it kind of looked like a Scottish Terrier. I remember seeing photos of it, but it's not a Scottish one.
Famous. Famous. Very good. Very meta. Self-aware. Good for her.
Or, good for her. Audrey's sense of well-being in Mexico wasn't just the result of kind reviews for Funny Face. Something steadier had fallen into place. Earlier that year in New York, she had quietly signed a letter of intent for a film Kurt Frings had been urging her toward for some time. It was called The Nun Story, and it would be directed by Fred Zinnemann. The deal was unusual and revealing. Audrey's fee
Well, you know what
was
his favorite spice is on the rack? Cinnamon.
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 For health and virility. Random. Continue.
Spicy.
Yeah.
The deal was unusual and revealing. Audrey's fee was lower than her recent films, but she negotiated 10% of the gross from her very first dollar earned. She also insisted that her parent company guarantee her fee if the film failed, and had that guarantee notarized before signing. This was no longer a young actress trusting the system. This was a woman who understood risk. Zinnerman was a serious filmmaker, Viennese, exacting, with recent successes like High Noon and From Here to Eternity. He had once hoped to direct Audrey in War and Peace until he learned that Dino De Laurentiis had cast Mel Ferreira, which he correctly guessed meant Audrey would inevitably be Natasha. Now, by a strange circular route, she had come back to him. The Nun Story, produced by Warner Brothers, was based on a novel by Catherine Hume, itself drawn closely from the life of a real nun who'd renounced her vows after years of missionary work in the Belgian Congo. Its central question was conscience versus obedience. What happens when inner truth collides with institutional faith? The Catholic hierarchy disapproved. Warner Brothers hesitated until Audrey said yes. With Audrey Hepburn attached, the project could not be dismissed as irreverent or cynical. If she believed in it, then the film must be sincere and potentially profitable. It's often assumed Audrey took the role because it echoed her own wartime experiences. That's not true. As with the Diary of Anne Frank, she resisted borrowing real suffering for personal prestige. What persuaded her was something quieter and more personal. Catherine Hume had worked with the United Nations Relief Administration after the war, an organization that had helped save countless lives, possibly including Audrey's own. For Audrey, the film became a gesture of gratitude rather than identification. She was also reassured when the wartime scenes were dropped. That pleases me, she said, still unwilling to reopen those years. As a Christian Scientist, she wasn't troubled by playing a Catholic nun who ultimately breaks her vows. Conscience had always come before dogma for Audrey. And crucially, there was no sexual transgression in the story, only the pressure of temptation resisted. The role of Dr. Fortunati eventually went to Peter Finch, dangerous, charismatic, and intelligent. Their pivotal confrontation scene would become the most demanding dramatic work Audrey had yet attempted. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, anxiety was building. By late 1957, Zinnemann was sending urgent cables to Warner Brothers, alarmed by Audrey's distress over one unanswered question: when would the film end? Because on that finish date hinged the start of another project, one Audrey was staking her marriage on, and that film was called Green Mansions. Audrey owed MGM a picture. She went personally to the head of production and offered herself on one condition: that Mel would direct. It was a generous gamble. MGM was indifferent to the project, but Audrey placed her own stardom behind it to support Mel's faltering career. The timing mattered desperately. Audrey wanted a child. She feared time slipping away. Every day in the every delay in the Nun's story postponed Green Mansions and postponed motherhood. So while Mel struggled through a run of disappointing projects, Audrey prepared obsessively. She lived like a postulant. She learned Latin prayers, practiced rituals, wore a nun's habit in public to understand its weight and visibility. She visited hospitals, met the real Sister Luke, studied the veil, worried about how much emotion could be conveyed through a triangle of exposed skin. She traveled to convents across Europe. Some welcomed her, some rejected her outright. Eventually, a Belgian order agreed to cooperate, discreetly encouraged by a donation from Warner Brothers. By January 1958, Zinnemann placed Audrey, Peggy Ashcroft, and Edith Evans into separate convents for a kind of quarantine. They emerged freezing, exhausted, and electrified by the experience. Then came Africa. The shoot was punishing: heat, humidity, illness. Audrey refused protective gloves while filming in a leper colony out of solidarity with the patients. She listened to drums echoing across the river at night, laughed on dangerous canoe journeys, smoked cigarettes to the bafflement of locals. Zinnemann told them she was an American nun, and they nodded. Her scene with Peter Finch, where he tells Sister Luke she has no vocation, cracked something open. It was the most searching moment of her career so far, and Audrey rose to it. She avoided scandals, she avoided affairs. Finch later said simply, she had a vocation. Back in Rome, her body finally collapsed. Kidney infections, fever, sedation. Warner Brothers grew impatient. Cables hardened in tone. Mel flew to her side. Her mother came. So did her half-brother. The crisis passed just. Filming resumed, and when Nun's story finally opened in New York, Warner executives braced for disappointment. Instead, crowds wrapped around the block. The film became one of the most profitable of Audrey's career, the most profitable she would ever make. In hindsight, the studio's delay in releasing it was a blessing. Its success softened the blow of what came next, because 3 months earlier, Green Mansions had opened, and that film, professionally and personally, would mark the first true rupture in Audrey Hepburn's life. In July,
Had to switch to my AirPods here.
Oh yeah.
My can started going low battery, low battery.
Oh no.
Sounds like Audrey's having a setback here.
Oh yeah.
In Act Two. Okay, all right. So she's like one of the biggest celebrities in the world now. And we're how close are we to Tiffany's?
Tiffany's was in the 60s. We're currently in 1958, so
Okay, all right.
we're not far.
We're still in Sinatra times. You know, we're
Yeah.
getting up to Tiffany's. Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah. In July 1958, Audrey Hepburn and her husband, Mel Ferrero, were preparing for the production of Green Mansions. Though their interviews suggested confidence, privately they were uncertain. The film, costing $3 million, a huge sum at the time, was a bold artistic venture. Mel had traveled extensively in South America, capturing exotic sounds and scouting locations, while Audrey had been filming in Africa. The dense jungle of W.H. Hudson's setting made location filming impossible, so MGM recreated the forest on studio sets, complete with imported birds, rare animals, and even a miniature deer named Little Ip, who became Rima's companion. Rima was the character that Audrey was playing. Audrey, yearning for a child, found herself bottle-feeding Little Ip at night, an ironic twist that highlighted her personal sacrifices for the film. There's a very famous photo of Audrey in a supermarket with this little baby deer named Ip and her dog. Because it came home to live with them.
The fairy tale. Crazy.
The deer came home to live with them, and she just took it places with her.
Sure. Yeah. She's at she's in the glen, and birds are landing on her shoulder.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's that type. Fun.
Yeah. Anthony Perkins was cast as Abel, Reema's love interest, after Audrey and Mel saw him on Broadway. Mel aimed to showcase both his and Audrey's artistry, hiring the Catherine Dunham dance troupe and Rufino Tamayo for music choreography and poster art. Audrey's costumes were more camouflage than clothing, blending her into the jungle. Despite careful preparation, Audrey struggled with the dialogue and the romantic scenes, which often seemed banal compared to the poetic setting. The film flopped critically, with reviewers mocking its antiquated story and Audrey's performance. Even the publicity emphasizing her love scenes failed to rescue it. After Green Mansions, Audrey committed to more demanding projects. She prepared for John Huston's The Unforgiven while pregnant, enduring harsh conditions in Mexico. She was injured in a horse riding accident, fracturing ribs and vertebrae and spraining her ankle. She this I think it was a stallion. It bucked
Oof.
her off. She
Yikes.
landed on her back and had to be taken to hospital.
Yeah. Yeah, she's maybe not the sturdiest person we've covered on the show.
Not the sturdiest person and pregnant at the time.
Yikes.
She faced daily physiotherapy while anxious about her pregnancy. Production had to pause, and though she returned to complete her scenes, the experience was physically and emotionally taxing. Tragically, she suffered a miscarriage soon after returning to Switzerland, despite earlier reassurances from doctors. During her convalescence, Audrey reviewed the script for Alfred Hitchcock's No Bail for the Judge and was horrified to find her character subjected to sexual assault. She refused the role, and to avoid conflict with Hitchcock, she became pregnant again. So it wasn't so much that she actually refused the role. She got pregnant so that she could delay being on this project, and Hitchcock had to go with another actress, and apparently he held this against her for the rest of his life.
The exit through the fertility option, which is something we don't really often discuss, but is always in play. Always in play at a certain age.
Yeah. He just was so angry at her for all time after this.
Hitchcock, huh?
Hitchcock, because he got outplayed by Audrey Hepburn.
She seems to be beating them at their own game. Not gonna lie. NGL. Fun. Okay, cool. I like her. She's spunky.
She's spunky, yeah. Yeah, she's got this very sort of unassuming, kind exterior, but a little tricky. And she's definitely surrounded herself with the right people to be the bad guy on her behalf.
That was what I was going to say. She sounds like even though early on she was kind of getting ripped off, it sounds like she figured out what she had, and her agent did the job. It sounds like she had a good agent.
Yeah.
I know what I got.
While Mel worked in Europe, Audrey remained at their Swiss chalet, focusing on her health and her growing family. On the 17th of January 1960, Audrey gave birth to her son Sean in Lucerne. She anxiously examined him, ensuring his well-being before a private baptism at their Bergenstock estate, where he was officially made a Swiss-American citizen. The period marked a dramatic intersection of Audrey's career ambitions, personal suffering, and joy at finally becoming a mother, illustrating the immense pressures she bore both professionally and personally. By early 1960, Paramount had grown impatient. Audrey had been turning down films while enjoying the joys of motherhood in Switzerland, but she still owed the studio 3 pictures. The studio made it clear she was not to think of working for anyone else until her obligations were settled. Audrey, however, was in no hurry. Her first trip abroad since Sean's birth was to Rome, accompanying Mel, who was starring in the vampire film Blood and Roses. There she posed for a Cecil Beaton photo session that captured her maternal contentment. She has lost her elfin looks, Beaton observed. Now she has a new womanly beauty. Soon after, Paramount offered her a role that would help discharge her obligations, a screen adaptation of Truman Capote's novella Breakfast at Tiffany's. Adapted by George Axelrod with Blake Edwards directing. But there was a problem. Holly Golightly, the heroine, was essentially a kept woman, leading a nocturnal, highly unconventional life, surviving on the generosity of men without performing the expected services.
Yo,
Audrey would have.
oh, listen to me. Without performing the expected services, I don't know. And kept woman? That's not what we mean by a kept woman.
Kept woman is in inverted commas there.
Ah, I see. An inverted. Okay, I see. Interesting. Yeah, she's the pet. Yeah. Huh. Okay, go on. Go on. Go on. I've got strong feelings about Breakfast at Tiffany's, if you haven't noticed.
Audrey would have to transform her image from the wholesome, ethereal presence audiences adored to the cheerful amorality of a high-class call girl, or as Kurt Frings diplomatically called her, a kook. Audrey hesitated. Holly was a whimsical predator, a truant from life, a playgirl whose fun barely concealed her damage. The idea of inhibiting such a morally ambiguous character was unsettling, even if it reflected aspects of her own youthful survival in the London nightclubs. She rationalized it. Holly, like she once had, was caught off base, but pretending conscientiously. Still, she knew she was luckier. She had a purpose, whereas Holly's identity was, in her own words, a total lack of identity. Capote himself was unconvinced. He had envisioned Marilyn Monroe in the role, a woman whose self-absorption perfectly matched Holly's charm and indifference. Monroe, however, was unavailable, and Paramount pressed Audrey to decide. Blake Edwards reassured her that Holly's predatory nature would be softened on screen, rendered charming by style rather than scandal, and Audrey agreed. The opening sequence of Breakfast at Tiffany's remains iconic. Holly, in a sleek Givenchy black dress, oversized pearls, long satin gloves, and a black pineapple hairstyle, emerges from a yellow cab on Fifth Avenue at dawn. She nibbles a pastry, sips coffee from a styrofoam cup, and gazes into Tiffany's windows, turning desire into a playful, almost childlike daydream. Audrey was nervous. Thousands of New Yorkers lined the street, curious about filming, but the image of Holly was instantly compelling, whimsical, yet untouchable. Working with George Peppard, the writer whose apartment Holly uses, posed another challenge. Peppard, trained in the method, approached acting analytically, while Audrey relied on instinct. Yet the age and dynamic of their characters, he's a kept man of sorts, she's a free-spirited playgirl, made their interactions believable. Holly's most genuine emotional connection is that with her cat, called Cat, rather than Peppard, and Audrey's charm ensured the audiences sympathized with her choices. Henry Mancini's Moon River became Holly's voice, an emblem of her longing and hidden vulnerability. Audrey's husky, wistful performance turned the theme into something timeless. Tiffany's later commemorated her as our Huckleberry friend. That was when she died. They put up a big sign in the Tiffany's window saying to our Huckleberry friend. Audrey's maternal instinct and personal introspection now informed her work. Motherhood had made her more attuned to life's subtleties and uncertainties. Despite her success with Holly, Audrey's professional and personal life remained complicated. The filming schedule, her travels, and her husband's career created strains. She spent Christmas 1960 in Hollywood caring for Sean while wrapping up Breakfast at Tiffany's, and then traveled to Paris and back to Bergenstock. She embraced the peace of home life, cooking for Mel and guests, managing routines, and nurturing Sean, all while maintaining her image as a serene star. Her friendship with Sophia Loren offered shared solace in the desire for motherhood and domestic stability, creating moments of simple intimacy far from Hollywood's glare. Film work, however, continued to pull her away. She agreed to The Children's Hour, a story about lesbianism, a daring choice given Hollywood's production code, and later to Paris When It Sizzles, which promised fun and style but became fraught with difficulties. William Holden, playing the co-lead, struggled with alcoholism and erratic behavior, while technical and stylistic issues disrupted production. Audrey endured multiple retakes and professional frustration, though she shielded Sean and maintained composure. Yet more opportunities arose. Stanley Donen offered Charade, a stylish Paris set romantic adventure with Cary Grant. The project was a perfect fit, elegant, playful, and safe for Audrey's image. Meeting Grant for the first time, she nearly panicked at dinner, spilling wine down his suit, but he handled it with practiced charm. Their rapport translated seamlessly to screen chemistry, blending humor and romance in a way that suited Audrey's sensibilities. Even as she thrived professionally, Audrey's marriage showed strains. Distance and diverging careers created tension with Mel, highlighting the growing importance of stability, home, and family in her life. Yet she also navigated Hollywood's demands, press scrutiny, and personal grief with a combination of discretion, determination, and maternal devotion. Through these years, motherhood reshaped Audrey, not only her priorities in daily life, but also the depth and perception of her work. She balanced obligations to studios with the needs of her child, negotiated the shifting expectations of American audiences, and continued to expand her artistic range. In the midst of chaos, uncertainty, and professional pressures, she cultivated a serene, disciplined order at home, blending the glamour of her career with the grounding reality of family life. I'm just going to refill my water.
Yeah, go for it. As
Tell
you do,
me what you think of Audrey Hepburn.
I'm enjoying this very much. She's a fascinating character. There was more darkness in the beginning in Act One than maybe I was anticipating, but her sudden rise to fame. I mean, you talk about meteoric fame. Very few people will ever experience anything like that. And then, of course, coming from post-war Europe to America during America's heyday, when they were making the boomers. Must have been quite shocking. So this is it for the year. Happy New Year, everybody. Next year, we're starting off with Freud, then Jung. If you were a patron, book club is going to be awesome. Let me tease the first couple of books in book club. Abbie's coming back with her water. In January, at the end of January, on the 31st, we're going to have Anna Krivolapova come on and talk about her fine book of short stories, Incurable Graphomania. And then in February, we're going to have author Cairo Smith and the show's lawyer, Dan Boltic, will be joining us to talk about Scene Bucks, which is a fantastic novel about trying to get offline and realizing everybody's online. So even when you're offline, you're online. So get copies of those too. And then in March, we're going to do The New Manifesto by Sam Ernst. So we're starting the year out with 3 living authors who you can support and hang out with behind the paywall. That's book club, artofdarkpod.com. Check everything out. And once again, I entreat you, sign up for a year of the Patreon. Set it and forget it. Don't think about it again. And I'm going to take this opportunity because, of course, Abbie, we're going to close out the episode with how are we going to end it? What are you going to say? What is the English way of making an exit? Because we say whelp.
Right.
Right. Okay. So before we do that, I just want to say again, thank you to Abbie. Everybody be nice to Abbie. Abbie Lucas at ABBIE Lucas on the Bird website. She'll be back next year for Michelangelo. And just want to say thanks again. I know people have really enjoyed your episodes, Abbie, and really good work this year. Really appreciate it. You brought a different voice to the show.
Thank you very much.
Yes, and you probably did as many women as we've done for the rest of the show, which is good. We want that heterodoxy. And next year we're going to be returning to our literary roots with the great Matt Taylor from There Will Be Books. Brad will be back. We're going to have Jack from Book Club from Hell is going to do an episode in the summer. It's going to be a great year. And just want to thank everybody who listens, everybody who supports the show. I know money's tight for people if you can't support materially. Tell people about the show. Hey, Mom, I know you like Breakfast at Tiffany's. Check out this 5-hour, 4-hour podcast on Audrey Hepburn. I think you'll like it. That helps the show, too. We really appreciate it. All right, Abbie, it's my turn to stand up. But keep on, keep it on.
Okay, so the next film that she did caused her a little bit of to be a little bit self-conscious because it had originally been a Broadway sensation, starring Julie Andrews, who at the time was not a big star, but in the same way that Audrey had been propelled into stardom with Gigi on Broadway, Julie Andrews had experienced the same meteoric rise, doing a play called My Fair Lady. But when it came to do the movie adaptation of My Fair Lady, Jack Warner of Warner Brothers had paid a huge amount for the film rights, and he needed a proven movie star, not a Broadway sensation. So Kurt Friggs opened negotiations for Audrey's services in September 1962, and by October, a deal was in place that left no doubt Audrey would carry the film. Warner Brothers had bought the rights from CBS Television for a then record $5.5 million. Audrey would be paid $1 million in 7 annual installments of $142,957.75 from the 1st of July 1963 to the 1st of July 1969.
Look at me
Reducing this
now. Look at me now. I'm
this
getting paper. She's getting
made
paid.
her this made her the highest paid actress in Hollywood.
Hell yeah, dude.
This deal.
Awesome. Wow.
The installments would reduce the Swiss tax bite on her income, already sheltered by offshore accounts in the Bahamas and Liechtenstein. Later, she moved considerable sums to Spain, taking advantage of Franco-era tax laws that shielded the world's wealthy. Yay, fascism.
You can have a little fascism as a treat, as it pertains to tax laws. You heard it here first. That good. I like to see that morals and I mean, listen, do you want the British state? Do you really want them to have 80% of your income? Do you?
I mean,
No.
not 80%, but I am quite happy with our health service.
Listen. The NHS, America is a giant torture chamber and a prison colony experiment at times. I worked briefly for the NHS. True story. When I lived over there. Listen, this is not a political podcast, Abbie, but politics come up. Politics come up. But again, they don't need 90% of anybody's income. Full stop.
No,
They don't.
no.
That's too much. It's too much. I don't care. I don't care if the person makes £8 million a year on equities, whatever it is. It's too much. The state, shrink the state. Don't raise the taxes. Taxes are way too damned high in the West. It's crazy. It's crazy. Anyway, need to start another podcast to just air it out. Yeah. Just air it out and then never release it. Yeah. Down at the docks.
I think people call that a diary.
Sure. Yeah, that's just what I need. Good God. All right. Well, listen, you can't blame her for doing these moves. Everybody does this. You get this kind of money, and it's just like, you just got to look at this is just how it's done. It's a game. Everybody plays the game. You got to kind of, I don't know. It is what it is. It's not here to levy judgment, but I do like how kind of Byzantine their system is. Once you're talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars, there are specialist CPAs who will pick up the phone and help you out. And they basically pay for themselves 20 times over by introducing you to somebody in the Seychelles or whatever it is. Suddenly you're dialing different numbers, and people are picking up right away. In any event, she's the highest paid, and that's men and women, or is she the highest paid woman?
I think the highest paid woman.
Highest paid woman. Okay. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Definition of a leading lady. Mm-hmm. Cool.
The leading lady.
Yeah, right. She's a poster.
Audrey would also receive $41,414.67 or pro rata for every week the production ran over schedule. Her per diem approached $1,000 a week with chauffeurs and first-class travel, but she would not have her usual approval over cast and crew. Some things apparently money couldn't buy. She earned 5 times as much as Rex Harrison, paid a mere $200,000. Harrison had restored his stage reputation as Professor Higgins, but as a film star, he was no longer deemed bankable. Peter O'Toole, 24 and fresh from Lawrence of Arabia, had been Warner's preferred choice, but his steep demands, 400,000 plus a percentage of box office, made the role unattainable. Even Audrey drew no percentage. Harrison, however, earned royalties from recordings of his songs, as well as the film soundtrack performed in his eccentric Sprechgesang. How do you say that? Sprechgesang. Sprechgesang.
Sprechgesang.
Sprechgesang.
It means speaking, singing. Like,
Yeah.
Tricky from Massive Attack. He's
Yeah.
famous for doing a Sprechgesang.
Sprechgesang.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, nailed it.
A technique dating back to English music hall. Fring's deal included a vital clause. If Audrey's singing was deemed unusable in the film, she too would participate in recording. Was deemed usable in the film, she too would participate in recording royalties. This potential windfall explained the anxiety she showed over her vocal performance. Julie Andrews, though disappointed, warned Audrey of the role's challenges. 2 of the songs are not easy. Is Audrey up to it? Audrey arrived in Los Angeles on the 15th of May, 1963, accompanied by Mel and their son Sean with his Italian nurse. They moved into a large Coldwater Canyon house rented by Warner Brothers, where Audrey quickly established a disciplined English lady routine. Early visitors included Cecil Beaton and George Cukor. I don't know who that is. Beaton fretted over her thinness, unaware that Audrey was still prone to anorexic spells. Yet her vitality shone, a phenomenon, Beaton wrote. Her mouth, her smile, her teeth are enchanting. Her whole quality overcomes any deviation from the norms of beauty. Cukor focused on her performance, wanted Eliza to be slightly comic but not chic. Perhaps this is the director of the film. A contradiction Beaton considered a great problem. Their rivalry over Audrey's image required her constant mediation. Almost immediately, she asked him if her singing would be used. His answer was tentative. If it's good enough, yes. This uncertainty added to Audrey's pressure, particularly as Harrison refused to pre-record his songs, meaning she would have to perform live on set with only the fallback of revoicing later if necessary. Ellen J. Lerner, who had campaigned for Julie Andrews, scrutinized Audrey as she practiced, while Andre Previn conducted a 50-piece orchestra. Despite extending her range by 5 notes, Audrey was later informed Marni Nixon would record all of Eliza's songs. Audrey was devastated, feeling her performance halved. Jack Warner refused to allow a re-recording, citing budget constraints. Nothing personal, he said, just Hollywood business. Audrey's days were exhausting. She adhered to strict routines, battled nervous tension, and acted as a script girl, production factotum, and den mother on Mel's subsequent films. Spain, Mel's favored location, offered little comfort to Audrey, who preferred the cooler climates of Northern Europe. By the film's world premiere in New York on 23rd of October 1964, it was widely known that Marni Nixon, not Audrey, sang Eliza's numbers. Warner Brothers issued a statement implying Audrey's voice would be heard on half the songs, a misleading claim quickly corrected by Nixon's husband. The resulting controversy only increased sympathy for Julie Andrews. Audrey's early scenes as the squashed cabbage leaf contrasted sharply with her usual image, leaving audiences in an uneasy hush. This is another example of her slumming it before being dressed up as a princess. But as Eliza's accent refined, her transformation thrilled viewers. The physical buoyancy, the joy of mastering her voice, and the grace Audrey radiated made the film a triumph, even if Nixon's voice provided the musical foundation. The film's later sequences improved steadily, showcasing Audrey's elegance and dramatic skill. Her portrayal of Eliza's pride and heartbreak after failing to win Higgins' love remains one of her finest performances. I've actually seen a version of My Fair Lady, I think on like a DVD extras where you see it with hear it with Audrey's singing, and it wasn't that bad.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
she was kind of robbed a little bit
Hmm.
uh,
Interesting. Politics.
because Rex
Something's going on.
Harrison.
Mhm.
Well, it's because Rex Harrison didn't want to record it before
Ah.
they they did it on set, so she was having to manage like a set and crew and
Hmm.
retakes and nerves and acting instead of just voicing it to the pre-recorded track.
Right. Right. That is a different lift, isn't it? Doing it in the
Hmm.
studio ahead of time
Yeah.
and getting to take direction and multiple takes and go get some water and suck on a lemon and come back and
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Huh. Okay. Right. Sounds like he was a bit of a douchebag there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
She's still getting paid.
Still getting paid. My Fair Lady won 12 Oscar nominations, but none of them were for Audrey. She congratulated Julie Andrews publicly while Jack Warner Everblunt forgot her name at a trade luncheon. I think I think that year Julie Andrews won for The Sound of Music.
Aha. Interesting. A little bit of a battle going on there.
A little
Hmm.
bit of a battle, so it felt like a bit of a kick to Audrey that the year
Like crazy. Sure.
she didn't get well, I guess it's poetic justice for Julie Andrews, but like
All right. All right.
it's not like Audrey was the one who created the situation in the first place.
Sure,
So,
sure. But it's also a case of like the human mind is so fickle and so status obsessed and oriented because it's a survival thing, finally,
mhm.
that you can be making the equivalent of what, like $20 million for a movie. And again, we don't do that on the fly. I'm just winging it. But you can make $20 million
Yeah.
on a movie and then somebody else gets a nomination and wins something you don't get, and it ruins your year. It's like got to zoom out, have a little perspective. You're in the
Well,
movie,
and that person is getting all of this like sympathy from the industry because their role
right?
was stolen from them.
Sure. Now you're the villain. Yeah,
Now you're
yeah.
the villain.
Oof,
Yeah.
Hollywood. Den of
Yeah.
vipers, den of snakes. Yeah, yeah.
Audrey attended the Oscars on the 5th of April 1965, aware that she would win nothing, yet accepted a role deputizing for Patricia Neal, who had suffered a stroke. And you can listen all about that in the Roald Dahl episode. So she presented the Best Actor award to her co-star Rex Harrison, who graciously included her in his thanks, avoiding potential embarrassment. Apparently, she in the when she was making the speech awarding the award to Rex Harrison, she had in her nervousness at the whole situation forgotten to thank or to mention Patricia Neal, and Roald Dahl went to the press and called her like it was just like really horrible about her.
Friend of the pod, Roald Dahl.
Yeah.
Good episode.
So after this Oscar debacle, Audrey finally put down roots. They sank into the Swiss soil in a village with the jaw-breaking name of
Is it German or French?
it's French.
Oh no.
Tollechenay sur Morges, just off the
Whoa.
Geneva motorway, a short drive from Lausanne.
Whoa.
The the choice was made
Damn.
not for her or for Mel, but for Sean. Um, French was spoken in that canton, and Audrey wanted her son immersed in the language early. The village school lay 100 yards from the gate. So this is the first property that they've bought. They've just been renting up until now.
Yeah, I mean, and when you look this up, I mean, it's the thing that the robot says is famous for being the home of Audrey Hepburn. It's that kind of fame.
Yeah. Surveying the property, she simply said, "It's everything I long for," and named it La Paisible, the place of peace. Peace, however, came with qualifications. The main road ran close to the front gate, slicing through the surrounding vineyards. Yet the garden wall stood firm, a quiet bulwark against intrusion. Visitors were instructed to enter and ring, but a ceramic warning tile offered a second message. Um, Attention au chien. I have to look up what that
What
means.
is it? Attention on sheen? Does it mean a cat?
Au chien.
Oh, how do you
Attention
spell
au
it?
chien. Chien.
Oh, sheen meaning
The house
a
itself.
dog. A dog.
A dog.
Warning, there's a
Famous.
dog.
Yeah.
Right, it's famous. The dog. Au chien. Au chien.
Au
Au chien.
chien.
We're French. We're never taking French lessons. We don't have enough Patreon support. This is all your fault. 2025 is the year of passing the buck. Oh, chien. Yeah,
But even when you don't do a French subject, somehow
right.
it always creeps in there.
You end up in Switzerland. I know it's such a weakness. I gotta ask Matt if he has any French. I'm sure. I don't know. I won't find out. We'll find out. But never gonna. I took exactly one like community ed kit class of French, and it was just totally elusive, very tricky. But in any event, we're doing our best. Okay. It basically means
We do try.
It basically means beware of the dog.
But,
Yeah.
yeah.
Of the
Which
Westie Terrier
I guess is kind of a joke because
with a
Famous
higher
was
net
a very
with a
small.
higher net worth than everybody else in the village. This dog.
The house itself, bought in 1965 for the equivalent of £18,500.
Yeah, a box of raspberries and one day on set. God, man.
Yeah, one day, like less than a week's overtime. Oh, at the time, actually, in pounds, that might have been a week's overtime.
Again, we're not going to do the
We're not going to
calculation,
do it.
but
We're not going to do it.
She's got that money and more. Let's just say that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was an 18th century firm, though closer to a manor than a farm. Peach color plaster walls, duck egg blue shutters, steeply pitched roof, gabled finials like miniature ship masts. Beneath the reception rooms lay cellars and kitchen spaces above bedroom and attic rooms tucked under the roofline. Virginia creeper would redden the walls in autumn. Cypress trees guarded one end, a great sycamore the other. Audrey had been guided to the property by her close friend Doris Briner, newly divorced from Yul Brynner, yeah,
Yul Brenner.
and live,
Yul Brenner, the famous Hollywood guy. Yeah.
yeah. I did not know of him, and living nearby in Lully. The garden became Audrey's greatest joy. It sloped gently southwards, dotted with apple trees that turned spring into an ocean of blossom. She planted an English cutting garden, but only white flowers. Color offended her, red most of all. A swing and slide were set up close to the house so she could watch Sean play. Furniture long kept in storage was unpacked and arranged for the last time. The atmosphere... So her and Mel had a bunch of furniture that they owned that they would unpack and set up in like the random hotel rooms and properties that they would have to go and live in while they were filming, because they felt like if they set up their own furniture, it would make them feel like they had more of a home life even though they didn't have a home.
If you're dealing with this kind of money, this kind of wealth, I would support that. I mean, if I'm being flown around and given chauffeurs and everything, and I'm being put up in the presidential suite, it's like you guys can spend an afternoon bringing my stuff there if I'm going to be here for 2 months shooting, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at me. I am the Airbnb now. You can boss
No one's
around.
going to accuse them of wrecking the furniture because it's all their own furniture.
Sure. It's all right. If you've never wrecked a hotel room or a condo or an apartment in a kind of a fury like Pink Floyd's The Wall, let me highly recommend it. It's good for the cardio, you know. Just don't throw yourself off the balcony.
No.
That's to be avoided. Um, cool. So she's again, but she's still a huge star. I mean, she is
Yeah.
the yeah, okay, bankable.
Yeah.
Yeah, she hasn't. She has it had a flop. What was the flop? Was it Green?
Green Mansions was a
Green
flop.
Mansions was a flop. Okay,
There are a couple of like minor, not
sure.
that great ones.
Yeah, we're still sort of in that studio system though, where they just don't let things like once you're in there, you're in there.
Mm,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Cool.
The atmosphere settled quickly into something quietly elegant, domestic, and unshowy. Not a film star's house, but a real home, welcoming friends, hosting film people in such relaxed surroundings that it was easier than ever for the mistress of La Possible to say no. This would be Audrey's home for the rest of her life. It would also be the place where she would die. Yet the very stillness she craved did not suit her marriage. Uh, the home was a place to rest. Rest was something Mel had never learned to do. He was a restless cosmopolitan, happiest moving from country to country, language to language, project to project. In the pre-fax era, Toloshanaz was a poor base for the kind of international maneuvering he thrived on. Audrey had lived at Mel's pace for 15 years. Now attachment to home felt, as she said, worth more than a second Oscar. Spain continued to exert its pull on Mel. There, at a party given by the Duchess of Alba, he and Audrey encountered a 16-year-old flamenco dancer named Marisol. Enchanted, Mel devised a Cinderella-like project for her, Cabriola, also released as Every Day as a Holiday. But the collapse of Samuel Bronston's empire drained momentum from Spanish film production, and Madrid proved a dead end. Still, Mel could not relinquish the Mediterranean. During Audrey's work on My Fair Lady, he traveled to Portugal to explore a film about Vasco da Gama, fell ill with fever, and was nursed back to health by the Duchess of Palmela. Audrey later sent a small light blue Tiffany & Co. box in thanks, a gold alligator brooch with emerald eyes, a witty nod to Mel's nickname Alligator, inspired by his formidable teeth. It was pure Hepburn, gratitude rendered with perfect taste. The Ferreras also bought a property in Marbella, then still unspoiled, soon to be transformed into a playground for the rich pioneered by Sean Connery. Audrey imagined it as a summer refuge for Sean, but La Possible had already settled the question of where home truly was. What lay ahead was both an opportunity and a problem. Audrey would need to reinvent herself. The youthful generation had overturned conventions in art, music, and film. At 36, staying relevant would require nerve. Kurt Frings offered her the chance with a light modern caper comedy called How to Steal a Million. The Audrey who arrived in Paris was newly styled, the elegance reimagined, but Hubert de Givenchy gave it a sharper edge. Modish, the fashion writers called it. Diamond patterned tights, shorter skirts, lower heels, spikier hair, herringbone suits, sailor style blazers, bubble sunglasses that made her look faintly extraterrestrial, and were instantly copied by women everywhere. The look nodded unmistakably towards the era of the Beatles, whose film Help had just been released, directed by the iconoclastic Richard Lester. How to Steal a Million proved she could still speak fluently to the moment. Paired with Peter O'Toole under the direction of William Wyler, Audrey rediscovered a sense of play. O'Toole's mischievous humor, including a notorious broom cupboard joke that left her helpless with laughter, loosened her habitual reserve. The film was popular, light, and fleet-footed. It also revealed a truth that she could not ignore. She was now older than her leading men. In December 1965, she discovered she was pregnant again. She wanted a second child, for Sean, for herself, and in the hope that it might steady her marriage. Instead, in 1966, she suffered another miscarriage at the Lausanne clinic. She returned home grieving, fearful she was losing not only a child but her husband. Work so often became refuge. The film, now able to proceed, was two for the road. a comedy edged with pain, written by Frederick Raphael and directed by Stanley Donen. Structured around fractured timelines and emotional repetition, it examined marriage not as romance fulfilled, but as endurance tested. Audrey hesitated. The script was daring. Adultery, semi-nudity, emotional abrasion. She worried what the public would think. Raphael later described her as prudique, modest but not prudish. Yet she
Emotional
agreed.
abrasion. Whoa. Now we're really getting into the 60s, aren't we? Holy
Hmm.
moly. Whoa. There might be conflict in a drama,
Not
emotional
a fairy
stakes,
tale.
right? Not a fairy
Hmm.
tale. But she's also getting older.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Her co-star would be Albert Finney, 7 years her junior, brash, unpredictable, and unlike anyone she had worked with before. Their first dinner was famously sabotaged by Finney's elaborate prank, in which he pretended to be flamboyantly effeminate for nearly half an hour before collapsing in laughter. The ice shattered, so did Audrey's assumptions. On location near Saint-Tropez, the two formed an intense bond, playful, intimate, emotionally charged. Finney's confidence and disregard for convention emboldened Audrey. She faced scenes that terrified her: emotional exposure, physical vulnerability, even water. A lifelong phobia rooted in a childhood near drowning in wartime Holland. With coaxing patience and Finney's blunt reassurance, she did them anyway. Two for the Road drew mixed reviews on release, but time has been kind. It's now seen as one of her most modern, emotionally truthful performances, a film that bridged classic Hollywood glamour and the restless honesty of the 1960s. It brought Audrey back into fashion not merely through clothes, but also through courage. She had crossed the gap. We ought to get a divorce. The words belonged to Albert.
So
Yes.
hang tight. That gap, that's the Sinatra Beatles gap, and that's
Hmm.
the gamine in her 20s, matron in her late 30s gap. They're happening at the
Hmm.
same time for her. So it's a very interesting moment
Yeah.
historically. Yeah. And she was a big part of it. Tiffany's was a big part of it.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
didn't interject so much on that, but that is a film about a mob connected, not drug dealing, but involved sex worker and
Uh-huh.
her sex worker writer boyfriend. That's what that movie's about. So
Yeah.
in 661, and then it's a hit too.
Hmm.
So we're pushing the edge here. Okay. Help. I need somebody help. Not just anybody. Help. Can't buy me love. And so forth. Cool. I'm still rooting for her.
Yep.
And I hope she pays as little taxes as possible.
We ought to get a divorce. The words belong to Albert Finney in Two for the Road, spoken with a teasing tenderness, as though the couple he and Audrey played were so secure in their love that they could flirt with catastrophe. Divorce in the film was a joke shared between equals, a game played by two people confident that nothing could truly undo them. In Audrey's real life, however, that unraveling was no game. It was happening slowly, almost politely, but with dreadful certainty. At first, she refused to listen to the whispers in the press about Mel and other women. The thought of a broken marriage terrified her. Sean was 6, the same age she had been when her own parents' marriage collapsed, and she could not bear the idea of her son reliving the same sense of rupture and abandonment. If endurance could prevent it, she could endure. If compromise could delay, she would compromise. It was in this spirit that she even agreed to appear in another film produced by her husband. While Audrey was away making Two for the Road, Mel had been actively setting up a new project, Wait Until Dark. From the outset, Audrey approached it with hesitation. The role demanded that she play a blind woman, and blindness, even imagined, unsettled her deeply. The loss of sight represented an existential terror, dependence, vulnerability, darkness. Yet the studio's enthusiasm was formidable. Warner Brothers had purchased the stage play even before it opened on Broadway, confident of its success. Written by Frederick Knott, already celebrated for Dial M for Murder, It was a claustrophobic one-set thriller about a blind woman terrorized in her own apartment by criminals attempting to retrieve a hidden cache of heroin. Studio memoranda reveal Audrey's anxiety even at the early stage. She was keen that her casting be announced quickly, fearful of a repetition of the My Fair Lady controversy, in which she had been accused of usurping a role made famous on stage. She was also fragile physically. Her anorexia, never far from the surface, had returned, and the studio quietly worried about how she might look by the time filming began. Contracts were drawn with protective clauses, as always privileging the picture over sentiment. By 1965, the deal was complete. Audrey would receive her now standard fee, retain director approval, and Mel would produce for a comparatively modest sum. The film was to be shot in Hollywood with additional location work in Toronto and New York. For a moment, Alfred Hitchcock was considered as a director until old resentments resurfaced and the idea was swiftly abandoned. Instead, Audrey proposed Terence Young, whose courtly manners and military polish reassured her. No sooner had the contracts been signed than Audrey's doubts intensified. Hollywood, after the chills she had felt following My Fair Lady, now repelled her. Europe was proposed instead. England, then Paris, with the tempting argument that the film could be made more cheaply overseas. Warner Brothers refused outright. Legal threats followed. Audrey capitulated. She would be, as the studio executive briskly put it, a good girl. As a final assertion of power, the studio informed her that Givenchy would not be designing the costumes. Those indulgences, she was told, were over. She retreated briefly into domestic life, supervising the completion of the Marbella villa, though her heart yearned for the autumn stillness of La Possible. Christmas 1966 found her back in Switzerland, watching Sean perform in a village nativity play, proudly reciting his French lines in a sheep's costume she had made herself. It was a moment of fragile happiness. In private, she prepared obsessively for the role that awaited her. She visited clinics for the blind, learned to navigate space by sound and touch, practiced pouring tea by sensing heat, and trained herself to use a white cane. When filming began, she discovered that her eyes, those famously expressive eyes, betrayed her. Contact lenses were ordered, thick, painful glass discs that left her eyes inflamed in the bitter winter cold. Her eyes were too sparkly for them to believe that she was blind, so they had to be dulled with contact lenses.
Wow. It's just too much vitality in your eyeballs.
Yeah.
That's wild. Okay. Huh. I did not know about this film.
I haven't seen it, but some people have. I've heard some people say that it was surprisingly good, although the the I don't think the critics at the time or the audiences at the time were particularly into it. The shoot was grueling. She was alone in almost every scene, subjected to escalating physical and psychological cruelty within the story. Though Charles Lang was behind the camera once again, he sensed how changed she was. Brittle, tense, no longer buoyed by the protections of old Hollywood ritual. The strain between Audrey and Mel was visible to all, and gossip traveled swiftly. A friend suggested therapy. Audrey recoiled. Proud and defiant, she would endure this alone. The film succeeded commercially, even earning her an Oscar nomination. But, well, I guess I was wrong. But it left her drained and out of step with the industry she had once embodied. When she returned to Switzerland in 1967, she was emotionally exhausted and increasingly isolated. Another pregnancy briefly offered hope and then ended in yet another miscarriage. Her weight plummeted, her despair deepened.
Oh my God. These miscarriages, are these a consequence of the anorexia? Possibly?
I mean, possibly.
I don't want to blame her or anything, but it's like, if you're... Right.
Also, Mel's like 40 or 40 something, 50 something at this point.
Sure. Hey, take that back.
No, I won't take it back. Recent studies have proved.
Okay, all right. Okay, I heard you. No, but that's true, and that's true. And she's suffering from anorexia, and it sounds like she's got a super stressful schedule. She's not. Yeah. This isn't a woman with hips for days, right? So.
She'd had kidney problems in the past and was suffering from exhaustion and all sorts of things.
Hard. Like miscarriages are very hard. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and 4. Yikes.
Yeah.
A little bit of darkness there. Yeah.
A little bit of darkness there. This time she asked for a separation, quietly and without bitterness. Her first concern was Sean. The public announcement, issued jointly, spoke of only of time apart. Divorce was not yet mentioned. Yet the timing, coinciding with the release of Two for the Road, lent the separation an airy symmetry as if art and life had folded into one another. Mel retreated into work, Audrey retreated into herself. Reconciliation remained possible, but as months passed, work proved more sustaining to Mel than home. Audrey stayed at La Possible, the house that had once promised peace, now echoing with solitude. In the summer of 1968, she joined a cruise through the Greek islands and there met Andrea Dotti. He was younger, thoughtful, attentive, a man whose profession alone suggested steadiness and care. He's a psychiatrist. What began as a conversation became confidences. What became confidences soon deepened into intimacy. To Audrey, worn down by loss and guilt, his calm authority and cheerful energy felt like rescue. He had first seen her years earlier as a schoolboy watching Roman Holiday in Rome. Now, improbably, she was asking his advice, leaning on his insight, trusting his reassurance. He offered not only affection, but understanding and, crucially, acceptance of Sean. She obtained her divorce quietly, as Swiss law allowed, in November 1968. That Christmas in Rome, Dotti proposed. She accepted, cautiously, thoughtfully, aware of the risks of being loved not just as a woman, but as an image. The wedding took place in Switzerland in January 1969, witnessed by close friends. The bride wore a pink jersey dress by Givenchy, a final familiar benediction. The fairy tale had not ended. Uh, um, it had just irrevocably changed. Audrey and her new husband spent part of their honeymoon house hunting in Rome, not for a villa or a palazzo, but for an apartment. When they found it, it was at the top of a converted palazzo that had once belonged to a church dignitary centuries earlier. High-ceilinged, spacious, with broad views over the Tiber. Audrey adored it. In her favorite word, it was divine. But she was also careful. Anyone who asked about her palazzo received a swift correction. No palazzo, she insisted, only an apartment. Ostentation, she believed, was not merely vulgar, it was unsafe. Rome was already changing. The carefree excesses of the Dolce Vita years were being edged out by fear. Kidnappings, urban terrorism, and a tightening grip of the Red Brigades. Discretion had become a form of self-preservation. Her days filled quickly. The overflow of a life she had long kept in storage, except for what La Possible could contain, now demanded sorting. She worked alongside carpenters and masons as the apartment was remodeled, her hair powdered white with falling plaster dust. Wrapped in a protective shroud like those worn by fashion models backstage, her narrow frame looked like a tent pole beneath its cover. She wanted everything right, fitted, ordered, and settled. She also entered fully into the rhythm of her husband's life. Andrea Dotti loved Rome at night. 2 or 3 evenings a week he took Audrey dancing. Nightclubs, late restaurants, crowded floors where the twist and newer dances held sway. Old acquaintances from the film world, used to the early to bed Audrey of her marriage to Mel, stared in disbelief at the sight of her dancing into the small hours. Dotti was an excellent dancer and proud of her. Audrey, for once, did not resist being shown off. She was relieved, deeply relieved, that Sean adapted easily. His Italian, learnt from his nurse Gina, had given him an immediate affinity with Dotti, and for Audrey, who had grown up largely apart from her half-brothers, joining a large matriarchal Italian family felt novel, even exhilarating. She fitted smoothly into Signora Bandini's routines, Sunday lunches without fail, church on special occasions, respectful participation, even though she herself was not Catholic. Slowly, almost unconsciously, she became Italian, in manner, in tempo, even in appearance. Though she remained closest to Givenchy, Paris saw less of her. When asked why she no longer sat front row at her shows, she explained regretfully that she could no longer simply fly off to Paris on a whim. Instead, she shopped in Rome's elegant boutiques and found the clothes quite beautiful.
This is the very, very rare potato to tomato transformation. You're a potato European, but you become a tomato European.
Yeah.
It does not happen very often.
I
We're
feel like
dealing with
she
a
sort of passed through a potato tomato country, though.
mm,
Like she
in
spent a
what?
lot of
In
time in
Switzerland?
France and Switzerland.
France, right. Of course, that's what I'm saying, but she slowly became if you're a shape rotator and you can see the apple, you know this thing with this meme where there are certain people who can't visualize an apple in their mind's eye. If you close your eyes, can you see an apple, Abbie? Okay. Okay. Abbie's not an NPC. We've established this. But so you can close your eyes and you can imagine Audrey Hepburn. Now imagine her as a potato, and now imagine her slowly becoming a tomato. That's the arc of this episode.
Is this like people who don't have a
An inner monologue.
an inner monologue?
They have no inner voice. Yeah. It's all vibes.
How it was, but it's so loud. How?
Wait, humanity is broad and diverse. Let's say that. It's a very, very curious thing. Yeah. Makes you
Okay.
think. It was your inner monologue just shrieking at you constantly?
It's not shrieking. It's just there.
Okay. It's there. Okay. Podgy. You have a podgy inner monologue.
It's pudgy.
All right, very good. And I have a pudgy outer monologue. Haha.
Aha. What she did not discuss was her deliberate restraint. She was determined to live within her husband's salary and not humiliate him by indulging in couture she could easily afford. Okay. Scripts continued to arrive. Many were put aside unread, some unopened. People assumed she would return to filmmaking, perhaps working in Rome now instead of Paris. She showed no inclination at all. I'm functioning as a woman should function, she said, leaving unspoken the implication that too many years had been spent functioning as a film star. Domesticity was the dream. Cinema had been the labor. Now she would choose the former. She felt she was robbing no one, least of all herself. Yet the danger signs were already there. Andrea Dotti had married a movie star. Watching her transform into a Roman housewife gradually dulled the luster of his prize. A close friend observed that it took him time to realize she was not the girl in Roman Holiday, and when he did, it was like waking from a beautiful dream. Reality did not compensate. For Audrey, however, this normal, healthy existence felt intoxicating. For Dottie, routine was insufficient. He liked glamour. He liked drifting Roman evenings that dissolved into night. Audrey liked outcomes, results, purpose. Maybe she is still potato. Even in the honeymoon months, the ground for a clash of temperaments was quietly being laid. Then 4 months into the marriage, everything changed. Audrey was pregnant. In any Italian family, a grandchild is the ultimate validation of a union. Doubly so when the son is already in middle age. Audrey's importance rose instantly, her maternal status eclipsing her wifely one. She would be nearly 41 when the baby arrived. Her history of miscarriages made it painfully clear this might be her last chance. She took meticulous care of herself, spending the summer months in near seclusion on a Mediterranean inlet where Roman bourgeois families sheltered their wives and children while the men returned to the mainland for work, and often discreetly for other pleasures. By September, she withdrew further still. Rather than return to Rome, she chose Le Possible as her place of confinement. Dottie visited on weekends, otherwise Audrey lived quietly, walking Sean to school, shopping at the village store, tending the garden, feeling the air cool as snow approached. Distance does not necessarily cool affection, but it can breed misunderstandings. Her friends believed that this was when such misunderstandings, and perhaps more than misunderstandings, began. Italian paparazzi had discovered Dottie's value as news. He was no longer just a psychiatrist, he was Audrey Hepburn's husband. Where he went, whom he was seen with, especially when she was absent, became fair game. Audrey understood that denial only fuels rumor. She remained silent, waiting for her child. Luca was born by caesarean section on 8th of February 1970. He weighed 7 pounds 8 ounces. Dottie was jubilant, proud to welcome another man into the house. Luca, it was said, strongly resembled his father. Audrey was triumphant simply to have succeeded, to have become a mother again. If anyone felt disappointment, it was her fans who wondered if she would ever return to the screen. See, she got a younger husband, didn't
Oh,
miscarry
and
the
okay,
child.
his boys can swim, huh? Okay, all right.
Uh-huh.
Listen, I'm taking my zinc. I'm taking my supplements. Okay, talking about one more. Who knows? You know, you gotta stay healthy, people. You gotta stay healthy. If you have four, you might as well go for five, right? Just keep on keeping on. Happy's like, oh my god. Listen, very powerful thing to have a big family.
I mean, to each their own.
Quite literally, it's a lot of responsibility. Good for her. I'm glad she was able to do that.
Good for her.
It's a very heavy
Yeah.
thing for women and for men who want to have children and can't. It's very heavy, very
Hmm.
hard. So good for her, and of course she can afford it.
Yes, she can. Although she's trying to live modestly within her husband's means at the
Yeah.
moment for
Okay.
some
Sure.
reason. I'm sure he would have been happy to live within her means by the sounds of things.
Yeah. Yeah. I think she knows what she's got, and she's probably protecting it. Probably wants the
Yeah.
investments to grow and do well. It sounds like she got some savvy dudes on her side to back her up on the
Yeah.
agent front and finances. And I'm glad to hear that.
Yes.
Yeah.
She soon clarified her position. In carefully chosen interviews, she declared she had no desire to work and saw no need to consult a psychiatrist to explain why. Talent, she said bluntly, had never seemed God given to her. She adored her work, had done her best, and that was all. What she feared most now was becoming unrelaxed again, locked in studios, tense, separated from her husband and children. Her days settled into ritual. She rose early, fed the baby, made breakfast herself despite offers of help. Dottie left for the clinic each morning. Sometimes he returned for lunch. Often he didn't come home until late evening. Occasionally she brought him pasta to the office and they ate together with Luca beside them. Her closeness to his work awakened her compassion for his patients, particularly children. They know me as Mrs. Dottie's wife, she emphasized, not as Audrey Hepburn. Cinema, when she thought of it, was something to watch, not make. The violence of contemporary films repelled her. She admired Jane Fonda and Clute, but wondered where the romantic comedies had gone. The world, she felt, had grown darker, less secure, and no longer very funny. Outwardly, the Dotties lived modestly. A Fiat, rented boats, family holidays. Wealth showed only indoors, protected by thick walls. Yet beneath Audrey's declarations of contentment ran a thread of vigilance. She once confided to friends that if she ever lost Andrea through infidelity, she would throw herself out of a window, a remark laughed away but spoken with unsettling force.
Yeah, let me
When the
interject here. Sorry, Abby. The richest people you know drive a Subaru and live in
Mhm.
a home that's slightly better than your middle class friends.
Yeah.
And they also have a place somewhere else that you don't know about.
Mhm.
And they have a little security system, and they're not extremely online. And they send their eldest daughter to a boarding school. Only their friends know this. And the other children are going to like a Waldorf school or to a charter school. And they subscribe to NPR. And they will only replace the Subaru with another used Subaru after that thing is driven into the ground.
Mhm.
No Lambos, right? No, for real. And those are the people sitting on, $28 million in family wealth
Mhm.
quietly. And they wear vests and Carhartt,
Vests.
and they like jogging, and you would never know it. And that's the way to be, by the way, uh, wherever you are, for sure. Yeah. I mean, geez, you talk about like in the 60s, what kidnappings in Italy, and yeah, you don't want to be the
Yeah.
rich American
No.
running around. You're asking for it. I mean, it's gone
Yeah.
on here now. I mean, hear stories about Puerto Rico and these idiots, flaunting. It's like, what are you
Mm.
doing? I'll put a knife to you for $500. You're out here with like a sports car. The fuck are you thinking? In any event, good for her. She knows
Good
what's
for
up.
her.
She knows what's up.
Yeah.
Watch out for those people with Subarus. There are two kinds of Subaru people. I described one kind. The other kind lives with their cats.
Shots fired at
Yeah,
Subarus.
shots fired at the Subaru people.
Um, when the family returned permanently to Switzerland in 1975 after kidnapping threats in Rome, the move strained the marriage further. Commuting replaced cohabitation. Airports replaced kitchens. Audrey acknowledged it was not ideal, but the decision loosened something else too, her resolve to never return to work. Opportunity arrived, however, in the form of Robin and Marian, directed by Richard Lester and co-starring Sean Connery. A story of aging lovers meeting again, aware of time's costs. Audrey recognized it instantly as a watershed. She was no longer afraid of maturity. A love story about mature people, she said. This is like a aging Robin Hood story. The filming exposed how much the industry had changed and how unprotected she now felt within it. Yet she endured. She always had. By the time the filming ended, it was clear she had married a man still in love with the idea of Audrey Hepburn and vulnerable to other women. She did not protest publicly. She retreated as she always did towards quiet places, dogs, flowers and nature. Her wish, she said simply, was not to be lonely. Robin and Marian was, on the whole, warmly received. Critics welcomed Audrey back as though greeting a familiar and much missed presence. Writing in the New York Times in March 1976, Vincent Canby observed that the film was at its best when it trusted its love story and allowed it to play largely through Miss Hepburn's magnificent face, which time had touched just enough to make us aware of the waste that Marian's last 20 years represent. It was a remark that could just as easily have been applied to Audrey's own recent absence from the screen. Her pairing with Sean Connery proved unexpectedly moving. Connery's Robin was a battered husk of a warrior, and beside him, Audrey's Marian appeared mellowed, almost matronly, a woman shaped by waiting. Their final scene together, in which Marian helps Robin fire the arrow that will determine the place of both their graves, carried a kind of operatic gravity. They played it like a Verdi duet, tenor and soprano facing the end with dignity rather than illusion. Although Audrey never complained directly to director Richard Lester, she was privately unhappy with the film's harsh visual texture. The lighting, she joked to a friend, made her look as if she was ready for the geriatrics ward. Still, she was deeply touched by the kindness of the reviews. At a moment when she needed reassurance, the warmth mattered more than vanity. What did not escape her, nor those close enough to see beneath the surface, was how closely Marian's story echoed her own. Like Marian, Audrey had taken a second chance on love, entering her marriage to Andrea Dotti, determined that it would not follow the same unhappy trajectory as her first. It was a resolve she held fiercely. It was one that also failed. With time, she and Dotti discovered they had far less in common than either had imagined. Years later, she spoke about it with a frankness she could not manage then. At first, she said she had assumed the relationship would remain a romance, especially given the age difference, but she had committed to making her second marriage her last, even to the point of setting aside her career. The birth of their son, Luca, only strengthened that resolve. Yet this sacrifice became one of the marriage's fault lines. Dotti preferred a wife who remained active in the glamorous world that reflected so well upon him. Audrey's retreat into domestic life removed that mirror. She tried to tolerate his social habits, making light of the photographs that caught him beside beautiful women, but the strain was cumulative. In early 1976, she traveled to Los Angeles to present William Wyler with a Lifetime Achievement Award from the American Film Institute. Dotti accompanied her, ostensibly to observe new psychiatric techniques at the University of California. On the way home, she stopped in New York for the premiere of Robin and Marian. Outside Radio City Music Hall, thousands waited. Fans pressed white orchids and roses into her hands, always white, her favorite. As they called out their love, tears came to her eyes. She had entered that rare realm of stardom in which people measure their own lives by the films you made when they were growing up. Back in Los Angeles later that month, she presented Jack Nicholson with his Best Actor Oscar for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Around this time, she privately watched another film that unsettled her far more deeply, Face to Face by Ingmar Bergman, starring Liv Ullmann. Its portrait of a woman whose composed exterior concealed a spiritual desert felt uncomfortably close to home. Audrey spoke often in interviews and to friends of Bergman's work, especially scenes from a marriage, which she called a masterpiece. It gave her, some felt, a frighteningly clear glimpse of her own predicament. When Bergman was later arrested in Sweden on tax charges,
Oh,
accusations.
hey, they've got a theme. Bergman's great. Bergman's the greatest to ever
Yeah,
do it for sure. Yeah. Go on. Tax evasion
tax charges, it
in
says.
black and
I'm
white.
assuming
Sure. Yeah.
evasion.
Tax charges. Maybe he just forgot to file. Yeah.
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 Accusations eventually dismissed. Audrey defended him with unusual passion and even offered him refuge in her home. He declined. Instead, he would go on to direct Autumn Sonata with Ingrid Bergman, a film about a tortured mother-daughter relationship whose resonance
Oh
with Audrey's own
man.
life would have been impossible to miss.
I, I've never really opened up on the pod about my Bergman obsession, but there was a period where, and I understand this is like sensitive young man 101, but I was just a freak for Bergman. I have to cover him on the pod. Um, I'll never miss a chance to see The Seventh Seal. Seen it in the cinema. Um, Persona is an incredible film. Yeah, there's just nobody else quite like him in cinema.
Hmm.
Big fan. Future subject for the pod for sure. Do you have deep thinks on Bergman, Abbie?
I don't have deep thinks. I haven't seen as much as I should have.
Yeah. A lot of this was way back on VHS and DVD, way back in the
Yeah.
day. I mean, but the films are just visionary, incredible, and anyway, you can't go wrong with Bergman.
Well, it seems Audrey was a big fan.
Sure, she's got good taste.
By now, she was visibly troubled. She spoke more openly about religion, read poetry, and quoted lines from the cocktail party to friends like the actor Robert Fleming. Hollywood no longer consoled her. Scripts were turned down. One role she missed through confusion over casting, The Turning Point, would have been perfect. Instead, she accepted Bloodline, a glossy thriller financed through German tax break syndicates and directed by Terence Young. She was paid $1 million, money she quietly set aside for her children's future. The film was savaged by critics, despite couture by Givenchy and an international cast that included Ben Gazzara. Audrey took the bows calmly. She had salvaged what she needed. Gazzara, rough-edged and irreverent, lifted her spirits during filming. His candor and dangerous charm reminded her of men she had once loved. It isn't age or even death one fears, she said at the time, as much as loneliness and lack of affection. With Gazzara, at least briefly, she felt the possibility of love again. Critically battered and professionally bruised, Audrey turned once more toward work, this time with Peter Bogdanovich. Their film, They All Laughed, was conceived as a light romantic comedy but became something more fragile and autobiographical. Shot on the streets of New York, stripped of glamour, it allowed Audrey to appear as she was, tentative, searching, luminous in her vulnerability. Bogdanovich later said she seemed to be looking for something life-giving that cinema in its transience could no longer provide. When filming ended, she returned to Rome, to Lucca, to a quieter life with flowers growing outside her windows. Divorce proceedings followed, long, painful, complicated by borders and laws. She spoke discreetly but honestly of her marriage's failures. And yet, even then, something else lay ahead. Several months earlier, she had met a man younger than herself, a man whose steadfast fidelity would become her greatest source of comfort as she entered the final, most moving chapter of her life.
And we go into Act Three. She's got an even younger man now.
Younger man. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Getting
mean,
that
I bet
that
they
high
all like
quality. hmm
they all grew up watching her in these films.
She's fair to
And
say she's a cougar now.
mhm,
Yeah, Audrey Hepburn, the cougar. Been
yeah,
some arguments around our place about what defines a cougar, what defines a MILF.
right.
So I think after multiple divorces, even though she's a mother, I think she's now achieved. She's kind of both. Again,
Right.
a rare transformation. Doesn't always happen
Hmm.
that way. She definitely deserved $1 million for that movie.
Yeah.
The potato becomes the tomato, and then we have this cougar situation. The mother, she's a mother cougar, rare mother cougar,
Right.
rare Audrey Hepburn win. Incredible. I gotta log off.
Yeah. Yeah. I just,
I have to sign off. I have to log off
please.
for a week.
Yes.
So fair to say this is our transition into Act Three, Abby.
Indeed.
All
Yes.
right, very good. Act Three, the final act, no doubt, before the After Dark. We're going to talk about
Before
some
the
fun
after
stuff.
dark.
I've got some really fun
Hmm.
stuff for the After Dark. We're going to talk about Christian Science. We're going to do David
Yep.
Lynch again, Catching the Big Fish. You're going to talk about daddy issues.
Hmm.
I think I have some other notes. Oh, we're going to read from Breakfast at Tiffany's a little bit of. I'm just going to
Yep.
open it up, read from some of it. The fine novella by Truman Capote.
We've got the letter that Truman Capote wrote to Audrey Hepburn.
Going to be some really, really good stuff. The only way you get to hear that extra hour, whatever we're going to do on the After Dark, 30, 45 minutes, an hour, is to support the pod. Patreon.com/Art of Dark Pod. That is the best way to do it. Sign up for a year. Just do it. You're not going to miss it. You're not going to think twice about it. But you're going to get to enjoy all the extra bonus stuff. We have a lot of stuff coming. We've got dark rooms lined up every week until April.
Wow.
In it with the core episode, it's going to be core episode, dark room, dark room, dark room, dark room. And Matt's been part of that booking. He's really excited, and I can't wait. I can't wait to subject him to 4 hours on Sigmund Freud. Oh, I'm
Brilliant.
learning so much about Freud. Did you know he was an Anglophile, Abby? Were you aware?
No.
He had near perfect English. Of course, his
Hmm.
final home, you can go. Have you been to the museum over there in London?
No, I haven't.
You should. You should go. Make a day trip. Maybe I come back. Maybe we go one day. But it's very cool. It's his old house, the house that he had when he finally fled the Germans, the Nazis, and they have his studio set up like it was. And
Mm.
he was a collector of artifacts and totems and a very, very funky, interesting, weird character. And I'm getting to learn a lot about his sex life.
Oh,
Yeah, which is interesting. And you're going to get to learn a lot about his sex life too in January on Art of Darkness. So, yeah, cool, Abby. This is good. I'm excited. I want to hear how her life winds down. She's one of the biggest winners in history for sure. She's living a
yes.
charmed life, no doubt. But she had her own agonies. You can make $1 million for a movie and then have a miscarriage and go
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
And be lacking that. I mean, I'm sure she had wonderful I'm sure she had terrific relationships with her children, considering that they still continue her work to this day. But yeah, she was really lacking that love that she was looking for.
And this is marriage number three we're caromming toward, correct?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
she doesn't marry this guy, but
Ah,
it's solid relationship number
I see.
significant
I see.
relationship number three.
Sure, sure.
Oh, number four actually,
Number four.
because there was the fiance that never became a husband.
I see. Okay, fair enough. Okay, I see. Yeah. And now she's cougar maxing out there in
Yeah,
Switzerland. Good, good for her. Cool.
good.
Carry on.
Okay. Well, Robert Walders was a tall, lean man with deep set eyes and a beard that lent him a gravity beyond his years. Like Audrey Hepburn, he was Dutch by birth, the son of an airline executive, and had spent part of his childhood and education in the United States. Asked as a student what he hoped for in life, he replied with dry, self aware charm to please the ladies. He had both the looks and the manners to do so, and a modest amount of acting talent besides. He had trained at drama school in New York and appeared in a handful of unremarkable film roles. And soon afterwards, he found himself, one imagines, uh, with relief, brushing sand from his boots and mounting a horse for a television western, where his clean lines and easy presence were more important than dramatic depth. It was during a stage appearance that he caught the attention of Noel Coward, who pops up quite often in this episode, who remembered his name when Merle Oberon asked him to suggest a leading man for her comeback film. He may have great promise, Merle, Coward said, and besides, he struck me as an awfully nice boy. The promise proved elusive on screen, but the second half of the recommendation bore fruit almost immediately. Oberon met Walters at a Hollywood dinner party. Ignoring the place card in front of him, she asked his name as she lifted her napkin. Robert Walters, ma'am, he replied. She looked again, startled by coincidence. Here was the very man Coward had mentioned weeks earlier. They began work on Interval in early 1972, a vanity production financed by Oberon's husband, the Italian industrialist Bruno Pagli, Paglii, Paglii, intended to revive her career and relive the ennui of her life in Acapulco. Oberon, then 61, had retained her beauty. The film cast her as a wealthy woman who, after killing her husband in a car accident, finds redemption through love with a young penniless artist among the Mayan ruins of Yucatan. Walters played the artist. Life in this instance followed art with unsettling speed. Having restored Oberon's character on screen, Walters restored Oberon herself off it. They married, despite an age difference of nearly 25 years. He has given my life new meaning, she said, given me my youth back. They enjoyed 7 years of genuine happiness. Though married, they behaved like lovers, walking hand in hand along the Malibu beach, sailing off the Catalina Island, checking into small hotels under assumed names as if on perpetual honeymoon. When Oberon underwent a triple bypass operation in 1977, Walters kept vigil at her bedside. As she was dying 2 years later, she reportedly told him, "My poor, poor Robbie, I'm letting you down." She left him her beach house and $2 million, enough to free him from the necessity of work. After her death in 1979, Walters was inconsolable. Friends gathered around him, among them Connie Wald and the widow of Edgar Bergen. It was Connie Wald who attempted gently to draw him back into life by inviting him to dinner with Billy Wilder, his wife, and her closest friend, Audrey Hepburn. Audrey at that moment was herself bruised by the collapse of her marriage and was about to begin work on They All Laughed. Walters was seated beside Audrey, as once he had been seated beside the woman who became his first wife. Despite her own distress, Audrey instinctively set out to comfort him. Other people's pain always drew out her best self. They took to each other immediately, slipping into Dutch, exchanging childhood memories of the Netherlands. Friendship at first sight, Audrey later called it, perhaps mindful that love at first sight had not served her well before. For the length of the dinner, and for a few days afterwards, their respective griefs receded. She made me feel better, Walters later said, adding that at this stage that was all she had intended. Months passed before they met again, this time in New York, where Walters was attending to matters related to Oberon's estate. Audrey, now increasingly isolated by her marital troubles, welcomed his company. Roles quietly reversed. It was his turn to steady her. Their closeness deepened almost accidentally. A cancelled night shoot left Audrey dreading an empty evening. With her former intimacy with Ben Gazzara cooled into professionalism, she invited Walters over. He stayed, talking with her for hours, and they missed a dinner engagement without regret. Within weeks, he returned to New York deliberately, and soon they were speaking several times a day. At first, Walters believed Audrey's concern for him was maternal rather than romantic. She felt I needed a woman in my life, he said. He did. It simply took time for her to realize that woman was herself. By then, Audrey had returned to Switzerland and set the machinery of divorce in motion. The negotiations were draining and protracted, complicated by custody issues and competing legal systems. Walters, with nothing to detain him in America, came to Switzerland. His presence was discreet. No one wished to complicate an already painful process, but it was stabilizing. For Audrey, this was love in its truest form, companionship, guardianship, the quiet tending of another's spirit. When the divorce was finally granted in 1982, marriage seemed unnecessary. Neither needed it financially nor emotionally. They had both learned how fragile happiness could be. "There's no reason why we shouldn't marry," Audrey said later, "but we're very happy the way we are." She explained that they had found one another at a moment that they were deeply unhappy and had made each other happy again. Walters had no hunger for status or ambition. He was not driven, not competitive, not a manager of careers, his own or hers. Life in Switzerland suited them both. Their life became calm, ordered, but not rigid. The villagers knew him as simply l'ami de Madame Audrey. He managed her days gently, shielding her from demands without causing offense, creating space where she could breathe. Audrey did not intend to retreat from the world, but she no longer wished to be consumed by it. In this, Walters was indispensable. He offered not excitement, not drama, but something far rarer, steadiness. It was for Audrey Hepburn, the love that arrived late and proved to be the one that endured. We didn't go to her, said Christa Roth, the German-born coordinator of UNICEF's Goodwill Ambassadors at the organization's Geneva headquarters. She came to us. The statement was simple and factual, yet Roth delivered it with an inflection that suggested something close to destiny. In October 1987, Audrey Hepburn and Robert Walters had planned a long-anticipated journey through the Far East. Their final stop on the itinerary was Macau, the Portuguese enclave on the Chinese mainland, where Audrey had been invited to dedicate the closing gala of the territory's first international music festival. The concert broadcast live across Europe and Asia was devoted to all the world's children. Every artist waved their fee. The proceeds would go to UNICEF. After the concert, Audrey voiced a quiet dissatisfaction. Dedication, she said, required little effort. Surely there was something more she could do. Her question was passed almost casually through UNICEF's Hong Kong field office. A working lunch followed soon after her return to Switzerland, and a date was fixed for her to observe what practical involvement with the organization might entail. At that moment, Christa Roth recalled the World Philharmonic Orchestra was preparing an immense global tour, 60 or 70 concerts in all. One was scheduled for Tokyo in March 1988. We knew Audrey had an enormous following in Japan, Roth said, so we asked her to appear on our behalf to introduce the orchestra and speak about our work. The response exceeded even UNICEF's most optimistic hopes. The Tokyo event took on the atmosphere of a national occasion. For Audrey, the effect was decisive. If lending her name and her presence could mobilize attention and resources for children, she would do it. That was the beginning. No one, Roth added, could have possibly foreseen what it would lead to. UNICEF, as ever, was in urgent need of funds. Contrary to popular belief, it receives no money from the general United Nations budget and must raise every dollar independently. At that time, the organization faced the immediate task of finding more than $20 million for famine relief in northern Ethiopia, where 5 million people, half of them children, were at risk. Audrey joined a small, highly valued circle of Goodwill ambassadors. Peter Ustinov, Richard Attenborough, Roger Moore, Liv Ullmann, Imran Khan, Julio Iglesias, Edmund Hillary, and the Japanese writer and broadcaster Tetsuko Kuroyanagi. Danny Kaye, one of UNICEF's most tireless champions, had died shortly before Audrey's appointment. UNICEF was careful to stress that she was not a replacement, merely an addition. She was, Roth explained, ideal not only because of her compassion, but because she needed nothing from the role. Her career required no polishing, no reflected limelight. She was dedicated to us, Roth said, smiling, not to herself, and we knew that she wouldn't be bothered by agents. We knew we wouldn't be bothered by agents. Audrey's appointment was announced on the 8th of March, 1988. The post carried no salary beyond a token $1 a year. All expenses not directly related to official travel were paid by Audrey herself. The work promised hardship, danger, disease, and political instability. Diplomatic privileges were minimal, and Audrey never claimed customs fees privileges. She was meticulous with money. Every journey was funded by public donations, charity events, and private gifts. She recorded her expenses in a small notebook, returning unused funds, just as she had done decades earlier as a young actress living frugally on her studio per diems. Within a fortnight of her appointment, she undertook her first mission, Ethiopia. She made one request only, that Robert Walters accompany her wherever UNICEF sent her. They flew to Addis Ababa with minimal luggage. Soon, the comfort of Swiss air gave way to hours perched on sacks of rice in the backs of trucks or clinging to Walder's arm in rattling helicopters, skimming over cracked plains to tented villages and makeshift clinics. It was a far cry from the days she could order a bidet to be installed for filming the nun's story. She dressed simply, chino trousers, a Lacoste shirt, a headscarf, a pastel roll neck when the night chill came. I'm not here to be seen, she said, but so that the rest of the world can see others. She held babies and brushed flies from their eyelids. She walked through villages without water, electricity, sanitation. She saw people bathe in sewage-filled rivers and drink from them. At an orphanage in Mekelle, children stared in silence until she spoke two words she had practiced carefully in their language. Thank you. Their faces lit up. It's ironic, she reflected, that I stayed at home all those years for the sake of children. Now it is for the sake of children that I travel the world. She visited food depots, hospitals, dam sites crowded with laborers like scenes from the Old Testament. What Ethiopia needed, she said, were spades to dig wells, not graves. She felt it was like walking on the moon. In one camp, a small girl stood alone. Audrey asked her what she wanted to be when she grew up. The answer translated was simply alive. She spoke with precision and restraint, never sentimental, always persuasive. Her voice, familiar to millions, now carried authority as well as warmth. She prepared relentlessly, absorbing briefings, statistics, histories. She rewrote UNICEF talking points in her own voice, shaping sentences into phrases that could travel across borders and headlines. To save one child is a blessing, she said. To save 1 million children is a God-given opportunity. She refused appearances that trivialized the work. She endured relentless interviews, dawn television, conference rooms of skeptical journalists. In Washington, D.C., she gave 15 interviews a day and still found time for a breakfast meeting with 25 members of Congress, urging increased aid. They agreed. Sometimes the attention distressed her. Glossy magazines paired stories of famine with fashion spreads. I didn't come here to make Givenchy look good, she said. He doesn't need me for that. Again and again, skepticism dissolved once she spoke. Celebrity, she said, is just a piece of luggage left over from my film years. When someone praised her sacrifice, she corrected them sharply. It's not sacrifice, it's a gift. By 1989, she was traveling constantly. Sudan, El Salvador, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Somalia. She endured danger, exhaustion, grief. She survived, she said, because there was always La Possible to return to. One script did tempt her back to film. Always, directed by Steven Spielberg, cast her as an angel welcoming a fallen pilot into the afterlife. The role was brief, but the symbolism profound. Much of her fee went directly to UNICEF. Wearing white, serene, weightless, she delivered her final lines before a film camera, advice she had long lived by. Do not waste your spirit on yourself, spend it on others. When Spielberg called cut, Audrey Hepburn stepped away from cinema for the last time and returned once more to the world. The toll Audrey's travels were taking on her health, if not her spirit, became visible and troubling. Friends begged her to slow down. It made no difference. She drove herself without mercy. Ian McLeod, a UNICEF field officer, met her on one African mission that took them to a feeding and medical center where many children had died. When Audrey arrived, the bodies of some 20 children lay waiting to be taken away, each sealed in a tiny sack like shopping bags, she later said. She swayed, close to fainting, then steadied herself and went on to see the living children, many of them who would soon die as well. You could see her emotions change, McLeod recalled. At first, she didn't want to see the worst. Then she said, that's what I have to see. It gave her strength, he believed, fuel to return and tell the world. She did not rest on those journeys. Inactivity seemed impossible. She slept badly. She absorbed tragedy both in its overwhelming scale and its smallest, most intimate forms, worrying about individuals as much as populations. The suffering took hold of her like a fever. Even back in the ordered West, McLeod said, her hands sometimes shook uncontrollably. Friends understood that part of her relentless drive came from a sense of repayment, a childhood debt to the relief agencies that had sustained her during wartime illnesses and near starvation. A circle was closing. Every emotion was magnified by memory. So when she came to London in May 1991, it was to take part in a fundraising concert for UNICEF based on the diary of Anne Frank. The music was composed and conducted by Michael Tilson Thomas, performed by the London Symphony Orchestra. Audrey was the narrator. She had twice refused to play Anne Frank on film, wary of turning a single child's tragedy into mass entertainment. Now she felt ready. She had seen so much suffering, she no longer feared it breaking her. She was no longer a film star performing grief. She was a participant in a contemporary echo of wartime horror. When the concert became a catharsis, she limits the damage of emotion, one writer observed, by communicating it. Fred Zinnemann, who had directed her in The Nun story, simply said, "She has gone beyond being an actress. She has achieved a kind of wisdom." The performance raised a record £30,000 for UNICEF, but the cost was mounting. By September 1992, Audrey undertook what would be her final mission, a 5-day visit to Somalia and Kenya. Her doctor warned her Somalia was fractured by warlords, famine, and disease. He asked if their journey was really necessary. The question unsettled her. She refused further tests. The itinerary was punishing. Dangerous overland travel under armed escort, feeding centers, refugee camps, hospitals, meetings with UN officials, press conferences. In Kismayo, she looked down from a helicopter at what appeared to be waves of terracotta dust around displacement camps. She later learned they were graves, thousands of them. The living, she said, looked like phantoms. Speaking to Newsweek journalist Christopher Dickey, she described the near absence of small children in the camps. They'd all been snuffed out like candles. Mogadishu was worse. She'd seen bombed cities before, but she said, but never one where every building bore shell holes, where silence replaced crying. Silent children, she said. You never forget that silence. Photographs from the trip are startling. Audrey, who'd always looked younger than her years, suddenly appeared much older, gaunt, sunken-eyed, hair scraped tight against her skull. Carrying an emaciated child, she looked transfigured, almost matriarchal, and unmistakably traumatized. On the second day, pain began, spasms in her lower abdomen. Local doctors suspected dysentery and urged her to stop. She refused. This isn't the time to rest. She returned to Geneva, then London, still refusing hospitalization. In early October 1992, she appeared at a UNICEF press conference. Journalist James Robert wrote that when she entered the room unsmiling, she wrapped the audience in her sorrow. Only Robert Walders knew the deeper reason. She was now on round-the-clock painkillers. By mid-October, she flew to Los Angeles. At Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, tests revealed a tumor of the colon. Emergency surgery followed on for the 1st of November. Initially, the prognosis seemed hopeful. Friends visited, Gregory Peck and Elizabeth Taylor among them. Audrey said she felt lucky. 3 weeks later, the pain returned. Tests showed aggressive spread. By mid-December, doctors told her she had at the most 3 months. She faced it without illusion. I didn't want self-deception, a friend said. She had things to do and little time. One piece of comfort arrived, news that UN forces had landed in Somalia to secure food aid. She's happy to know she did her part, a spokesman said. Then she understood that the medicine could do no more. Audrey asked to go home. A private jet was arranged by Bunny Mallon at the prompting of Givenchy. On the 21st of December 1992, she returned to La Possible and Tolochenaz. The house was filled with lilies of the valley, Givenchy's flower. She rested, walked briefly when she could, sent Christmas cards bearing a quotation from Rabindranath Tagore. Each child is a reminder that God has not lost hope in man. On Christmas Day, surrounded by family, she said, I have had the best Christmas of my life. Honors followed, a Screen Actors Guild Lifetime Achievement Award accepted by Julia Roberts, the Jean Hersholt Humanitarian Award for her UNICEF work. She smiled at the symmetry. Hersholt had once handed her the Oscar for Roman Holiday. By January, her strength ebbed. She refused heavy sedation. She listened, she held hands. She heard that Mother Teresa had ordered a 24-hour prayer vigil for her. At 7 o'clock on the evening of the 20th of January 1993, Audrey slipped into unconsciousness. She died shortly afterwards, surrounded by those she loved. Candles appeared in village windows. The church bell tolled for Madame Audrey. Flowers lined the steps of La Possible. At UNICEF, Krista Roth was devastated. She was like her sister, she said. Letters flooded in from the famous and the unknown. Sean Ferreira read every one. When journalists later asked to see Audrey's office at UNICEF, Roth would smile. An office? Audrey never had one. She went wherever she was needed. Tributes to Audrey continued to arrive in great rolling waves as friends, colleagues, and contemporaries absorbed the news. There was an unmistakable depth to the mourning. When a woman so beautiful, so loved, is taken too early, the response can easily slip into platitude, but here much of the usual varnish was stripped away by genuine feeling. Even Elizabeth Taylor's florid remark, "God has a most beautiful new angel now," redeemed itself when she added with affectionate precision that Audrey would know exactly what to do in heaven. Sophia Loren said simply that Audrey had enriched the lives of millions, a statement that quietly invited the darker corollary that she had saved some lives too, though never as many as she wished. Sean Connery reflected on their late pairing and Robin and Marion, saying, "I absolutely adored her, and so did everyone else." A banal truth, perhaps, but a true one. Ronald Reagan called her a true great. Roger Moore, her Swiss neighbor and fellow UNICEF ambassador, avoided rhetoric altogether, offering instead a quiet rebuke to Hollywood itself. She was, he said, a star who genuinely cared for others before herself. The obituaries were long and plentiful. Martha Sherrill, writing in the International Herald Tribune, spoke of Audrey's enchantment, her effortless grace, her ability to transcend gloom with fragility and abandon and an old European wisdom. It may have pitched her solemnly, but there was truth in it. Anthony Lane in The Independent on Sunday captured something more mercurial. Audrey, he wrote, raised the spirits of everyone around her. When she walked into the movies, all heaven broke loose. Sheridan Morley, reflecting on her UNICEF work, observed that while other real-life princes appeared to be acting, Hepburn, the only actress amongst them, did it all without theatricality, and Gregory Peck bound past and present together when he said, "The princess did become a queen, not only on the screen." Perhaps the tribute that reached deepest came from Peter Ustinov, her neighbor in Switzerland and fellow humanitarian. Writing in The European, he addressed the cynicism of the developed world, a world quick to believe a star might visit Somalia for money or publicity, but slow to accept sincerity without reward. To think such thoughts about Audrey, he wrote, would be unjust and ugly beyond measure. She understood better than anyone that the true recompense lay in the eyes of those who needed help. And yet, despite her apparent transparency, there remains some mystery about Audrey's final years. Good deeds alone do not explain the fierce momentum that carried her forward. She bore private wounds, particularly those rooted in her childhood, and the suffering she encountered as a UNICEF envoy were vast enough to overwhelm even in the strongest spirit. Some believe now that she drove herself too hard, that compassion itself became a kind of overload, overwhelming her slight physical frame. It would be tasteless to speculate too far. What can be said is that she chose intensity over preservation, commitment over caution. There is, as the biographer suggests, a haunting affinity between Audrey's path and that of Celia in The Cocktail Party, a work she loved and often quoted. Celia seeks salvation not through comfort, but through suffering, choosing an austere path that leads to a saint-like death. Whether this was ever part of Audrey's conscious design is unknowable, but the stoicism, serenity, and final joy that marked her last month suggests a life that, despite its brevity, had found its vocation. Audrey died on a Wednesday. Her funeral was held the following Sunday in a small peach-colored evangelical church in Toloshenaz. The service was conducted by Pastor Andre Monier with Pastor Maurice Ein de Gure, who had married Audrey and Mel Ferreira and baptized Sean, coming out of retirement to deliver the eulogy. The church was small, barely holding 100, and the family feared an onslaught of press and mourners. Instead, what arrived was respect. Crowds stood silently in the cold, grief held in check. Even camera crews moved gently and apologetically. By mid-morning, flowers filled the church, tributes from royalty, from friends, from UNICEF, from people bound to Audrey only by love. Shortly before noon, the side gate of Le Possible opened, and her blonde oak coffin was carried by those closest to her. Sean Ferreira, Luca Dotti, Robert Walders, and Hubert de Givenchy among them. Mel Ferreira followed, visibly aged, visibly broken, and drawn forward by his son into the circle of grief. Music rose, Bach, valiant rather than sombre, and the children's voices filled the church. At Sean's request, the choir of St. George's International School sang The Lord is My Shepherd. As Pastor Eden Gure spoke of Audrey's light reflected in the faces of Somali children, the winter sun broke through the clouds and flooded the church. If not an omen, it was a moment of grace. Sean's words provided the heart of the service. He recalled his mother reading the letter on Christmas Eve. If you ever need a helping hand, it's at the end of your arm. As you grow older, remember you have two hands, one to help yourself and the other to help others. Mummy believed in love, he said quietly, that it could heal and mend and make everything all right in the end. Afterwards, the coffin was carried to a small hillside cemetery overlooking vineyards and home. Audrey's grave was marked by a simple wooden cross bearing her name and dates. One by one, mourners laid flowers, roses, lilies, carnations, until it seemed she was not buried at all, but cradled in a vast basket of blossoms. Thus ended the life of Audrey Hepburn, actress, humanitarian. Oh, and in the deepest sense, a woman who chose love as her life's work.
All right. Well done, Abbie. That's a good way to end the season with some tears. Very, very well done. I learned so much. And what a great life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And she didn't sit on her hands and she didn't lose her mind.
No.
She had children. She made a lot of money. She lived until 1993.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
93?
Yeah. Is that
Yeah.
right? Let's get it right. Well, let me ask you the question. What would, and then we'll close this out.
93.
93.
Just
1993.
20th of
Just
January.
20th of January. What do you think she'd be doing now?
Helping children.
Helping children. Let's imagine Audrey Hepburn in her prime. What is she doing? Is she acting or is she an influencer now?
Oh man. I don't
Maybe she would do ballet because maybe people got a little
yeah,
taller.
maybe.
Nutrition is
Yeah.
better. She could have maybe done ballet.
Yeah.
I feel like she
Yeah,
would have found
perhaps
her
dance
way
is
into
watching.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fun to speculate. Really, really great job. We're going to be hanging out again for another hour-ish on the After Dark. Abbie's got some stuff prepared. We're going to do the wind down our year of Lynch. Just saw a new Patreon supporter come through. Thank you. Appreciate you all. If you want to continue to hang out with us, support the pod. Support Abbie Lucas. She'll be back. I'll certainly be back. How are we going to end this episode, Abbie? Right.
Right. Okay.
Well, okay. Pat, 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 pat. I'll just be going now.
Yeah. Should be heading off.
Any day. Okay. A little cold out there. We'll be back. We'll be back. We'll be back after we get through this Irish exit.
Bye.
Bye.